again, you're welcome back from the break. You're watching This Week Africa with me, Afia Ofosua. As I earlier indicated in my introduction tonight, we're taking a look into the moments leading to the general elections in Senegal, during the elections and the aftermath of the main elections, and what this means so far as Senegal's democracy is concerned. And not just Senegal, but then the African continent at large. So tonight we are privileged. I have been joined in studio. Tonight it's not via Zoom. Dr.Ishmael Nii Amanor Dodoo. He's been joining us via Zoom all the time, but tonight we are privileged. We're having him in studio to discuss this. He's an African diplomat, a former United Nations governance advisor, and a development expert. Hello, Dr. Ish.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good to see you in person.
Good to see you too. Our viewers are happy to see you.
Indeed, and this is wonderful, wonderful setting too.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Now, moments leading to the main elections, we had conversations via Zoom regarding the posture of Macky Sall. Now the main elections have happened. We've seen the results. Let me pick your initial thoughts regarding how you felt when you heard that Faye, had been elected the president of Senegal.
That's a very good question. When I heard that Diomaye actually is about to become president, I was very shocked, because all of our analyses had pointed to at least a runoff, and I was also not very convinced that. Even though word on the street keeps saying that, well, Diomaye's partnership with Sonko is going to get him win the election, and there were a lot of people that I interacted with in Senegal, back in Senegal, who have been following this election in the political settings, and the conversation we're having never points to the fact that there's going to be an outright win.
Okay.
So as the outright win came, I was very surprised, but I was pleasantly surprised too, because I was talking to some of the young people who were very instrumental in his campaign.
Okay. And
believe it or not, they're all over the place. In France, some were in Rwanda. I was talking to some in country, and some in the UK, and so I had a lot of conversation with some of them, and it gave me the impression that they did the disciple work very well in convincing people that there is a certain move that they need to join, and so it was quite an interesting situation. You can see I'm very happy that
Africa's youngest president. He's broken a record.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
My thought is that when he turns up in African Union meetings, he would change the narrative, because when we are used to seeing old men.
A lot of gray hair.
Gray hair and very tired in pictures after African Union meetings, and now we're going to see a young man there.
Okay.
So I think it's a sign that the spotlight is on Africa today, and things will change. Also, it's also a signal that we are very tired of very old ideologies and philosophies about what Africa ought to be. It's really disheartening to see a continent in the way we are today, when you look at the euphoria that followed our state of independence, of course, in 1957 in Ghana, but in the 1960s when we started having independence, the euphoria that followed. And at the time we got independence, indeed, there were young people, very younger generation that actually got us the independence. And so I think we are going back to it. It's a Sankofa moment for Africa.
Dr. Ishmael says it's a Sankofa moment. Let's look at the other African countries. Do you see 2024 is an election year? Do you see other African countries picking a cue from what Senegal has done?
Well, I think that when you look at Senegal, where they are today is 5 years ago.
Right.
So, Ousmane Sonko and Diomaye and his team, and I had a unique privilege to be in a close meeting with some of them, where they are talking about framing their vision, their strategy. And as a conservative in politics, I believe that you can't discard the old foundations.
Right.
Neither should you keep the neither should you keep the behavior of the oldies, but we must have a mixture. So I believe that there's always a bridge and a transition moment. So I would push them. Them to have some very radical ideas, which today, thinking about the ideas, I don't think that they are far-fetched. And I think that, so they've had a program and a vision, and they have used consistent discipline to follow through. And one of the things that is very remarkable about Diomaye and Osman Sonko is their ability to really prove to Senegalese they are selfless men of integrity. And they prove it with metrics and say, look at our work as tax collectors. We're taking taxes from the richest people, the richest companies, who have consistently been giving us bribes, and we refused. And they got some of the companies to say, yes, it is true, we could not bribe these guys. So they proved integrity. And the one fact that they were pushing is we would deal with the issue of corruption. And we have dealt with ourselves so we can deal with everybody else. And I think we don't have any of the presidential candidates who are going to go to, elections in 2024 being able to stand before his population and say, all right, check me out. I'm not corrupt.
He's declared his assets.
He has.
What does that say about him?
Yeah, this is what they are bringing.
Okay.
For them, integrity is number one. And by the way, Senegalese people, they believe in the integrity of the homes they come from.
Okay.
And that's very, 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 very interesting sociological behavior. They'll say, my name is this, and I will never do that. I wish that we can also say the same of our country, Ghana, where people will not forget the homes they have come from. So when they are in government, they will really know that it is something about them that the people voted for. And what the people voted for is actually your integrity and your reputation and your demonstration that you have done it before and you can do it for the people, and your consistent view of the people. These guys, what they did, they really trumpet the same vision for 5 years. This is what we're going to do. And they were singing the same song for 5 years. He wrote it into a book and he said, you want to know my vision? Read my book. Then we can have a conversation. If you read my book, you can ask questions. So can you imagine having consistent discipline of a vision and a program for 5 years? I'm not very surprised that they get that. So the question is, to your question, I don't think that any elections in Africa from this will really see what Senegal has done. Maybe we will be able to see some of them at the local level in terms of parliamentary representation. I'm hoping that should inspire parliamentary representation. But it's a done deal for most countries. They know who their flag bearer is, so this is not a time to change. But I think it's also very interesting in Ghana today, where we have the Cheddar movement too, and maybe that's also something that Cheddar is trying to push. We'll see. But if you have to place Cheddar's movement against the litmus test of Bassirou Diomaye and Osman Sonko, and my belief is that he has to pass through the litmus test first.
So there's some work to be done.
There's some work
now,
to be done.
The analysis for most people is that, they were in prison 10 days prior to the main elections. They came out and then they've won the elections. But looking at the analysis you have given so far, these are people who have done their homework well.
Yes.
Even in prison, they were still fighting. They have done their work in years. It's taken them years to win this election, as we are seeing now.
Yes.
Right.
You will see that Osman Sonko was giving news presentations. I mean, engaging the media out from prison and still saying, they were what they sold to their masses is three things actually. Number one, we want to stamp corruption in politics. And that this corruption is coming because we have a so-called families that have been ruling the country since independence. And this country does not belong to them, it belongs to all the citizens. So citizens who believe that they have what it takes to run the country should be given opportunity to do so. After all, that is what citizenry is. You have the ability to be able to contribute to the building of your republic. And so they managed to get their followers to understand that, you know, you can change the political class, and they are anti-establishment.
Right.
So that's the first one. The second one is they look at what makes the country tick. It is its mineral resources and in terms of energy, and now they have oil and gas. And they pose the question, if you look at these resources, how much is going to go to Senegal versus the investors? Less than 20%, as in the case, I'm going to know, this is our own asset. If we cannot have 50%, then why do we negotiate it to people? So we would, when we come back, we will sit down with the oil companies that have been allocated concessions to renegotiate. And they've been trumpeting this since 5 years ago. And consistently, they are followed through. And the third one is, you know, look at the relationship with colonial master France, and how much France is interwoven into the economy, and how much French companies are making versus, you know, local companies, or Senegalese or Africans that are invested in the country. You could say that over 60% of the fortunes of the country in terms of investment are coming from French companies. So they say, no, this is not right. This is our country. We need to open up entrepreneurial opportunities for other people as well. Why should French companies lead key sectors or commanding heights of the economy? So all these, you know, three key things were things that they really sold out to the people.
So
on top of it,
with the people.
on top of it is, look at me.
Okay.
I'm able to do what I'm able to say because I'm not corrupt. Because I understand I'm a tax collector, I know where the money is going, and I'm telling you the truth. Right. Because if you look at my background, from a village to where I am today, and I'm still not, you know, chasing after people's money and be corrupt, then I can tell you that I can lead a country. And Ousmane Sonko connected intergenerationally. That's also one thing. Not just the youth going in their radicality, right, but he has other old people that were guiding him in terms of framing strategy and writing his vision.
Right.
You know, so he had a good foundation.
Okay.
It's more of a build-up of
right,
what has been existing before.
Right.
So if you look at the people of the 17 candidates, 10 of them had come from the establishment, and they went independent in order to break the establishment's vote from Amadou Ba.
Okay.
So they did that intentionally so that they can split the votes,
right,
and give the opportunity to Bassirou, Diomaye Faye, and Ousmane Sonko. Okay. And then they are going to be with him, okay, in his governance.
Okay. Now, I'm glad you talk about background. This is an analogy that just came to mind. Do you think that people's background influences the kind of leaders they become? So that, for instance, if someone came from a very tough background, they have seen farmers suffer because maybe their parents themselves were farmers who could hardly have access to fertilizers. Water was an issue. They had to trek miles to reach school. Life was tough. Do you think that people who have come from such backgrounds, who eventually become leaders, tend to govern a lot more differently than people who have come from softer and affluent backgrounds?
This is a very good question, because I've also thought about it. It speaks to the bigger issue of how leaders are formed.
Okay.
You know, I wouldn't say that leaders are created. Everybody is created with some leadership innate in them. If you go through scriptures in Genesis, when God created us, we're given the opportunity to have dominion in the commanding height of our environment. So we do have that. But what is very interesting is that once you have the seed of leadership in you, you need to let it grow. Okay. And there's a process in letting the leadership grow. And the process of forming that leadership actually is embedded in your life transitions. And that's why I have a very challenging, occasions to really think, if you come from university, you know how to talk, you're a student politician, then you move into parliament, and then you are minister of state. Now you want to be president. Now, when you look at the transitions, you have never been tried and tested. You know, you've never graduated from school and maybe get a job where you are paid, 500 Ghana cedis, 1,000 Ghana cedis, and you still want to marry, you want to pay your rent, and so on. You've never gone through these motions. But if we move you from university straight into politics, you kind of cut through all these moments of life transition, which will shape your ability to think strategically, your ability to learn how to save, your ability to be tried, being in furnace or fire where maybe somebody is getting you out of his you can't pay your rent, and you have to find a way to negotiate. Stay. You know, all these life events, they shape your leadership formation. So to speak to your point, leaders, if you look at resilient leaders who have done very well, most of them have not come from very
affluent backgrounds. Okay.
And those who have made money, for example, look at, when I say money, I mean I've been very instrumental in entrepreneurship. They don't come from affluent backgrounds. Even Macky Sall himself, his mother used to sell granules at a place in Go, and he has to sit there to sell the granules, be able to make some of the money to go to school. At the time that he was a prime minister, he was renting.
Okay.
You know, so he came from a very poor background.
Right.
And you know, you also have Dr. Kwame Nkrumah that we know. Well, there's a famous Yokegari story of President Rawlings and so on. So when you have come from such backgrounds, it shapes your leadership.
Dr. Ishmael, when a girl in a village somewhere says that I cannot afford sanitary pad, when a farmer in a village says I cannot afford fertilizer for my crops, when people say they cannot afford food, as a leader, you need to be at a place where you're able to understand them.
Yes.
But then I have come to understand that often for a number of people in these leadership positions, they do not understand these people. They have, and it's often because they haven't been in such situations before. And that in itself impacts their response to the needs of their people.
But I think that if you look at our case in Ghana, a lot of them, our parliamentarians, if you look at their background, most of them actually had come from very tough situations.
Right.
But then when they get into office, political office, then they forget all about their hardships.
So there's that bit of a conversation.
So that is the question we need to try and ask. Why?
Okay.
I think that when you give someone power, it shows the actual person comes out. It may be that in their leadership formation process, they were not well formed before you give them the power. They didn't work on their character.
Right.
Because there's something about leadership that is and politics. I always say that politics is a noble cause because it's an opportunity to serve your nation, an opportunity to serve in ways that you bring value to communities, value to human beings. It is wonderful to see that because of you being a minister of state and running your ministry of say local government or environment, something, you can see the fruits of it, and it is expressed in the economic empowerment of people. And people could walk up to you and say, because of your policy, because of what you did, I am able to be here. So universally, the universe has a way of blessing you back and making you wealthy beyond just having money. And you will be able to also make money if you do well. Because if you make millionaires and billionaires in a country, if 10 billionaires in a country decide that, okay, I'm going to thank you, if a billionaire wants to thank you for you being
that's a lot.
So you see that
it will come back to you.
It will come back to you, and you can be becoming more affluent themselves. So leaders don't think about it this way, and I think our society creates the condition for them to continue to focus on the power rather than the services to the people.
Right.
And this is what we need to change. I think that our politics needs to we need to construct our politics in such a way that there's a system or a process of grooming people. That's what the Chinese have. Xi Jinping, president, did not start, he started from the bottom and moved all the way up to where he is. So he's learned to run administration. He's learned to, show himself of integrity. He's learned all these things and coming with experience. And there's also something that is very useful. We shouldn't be, as a nation, we shouldn't be constructing our politics by giving it to powers to people who have not tried and tested, have not been tried and tested and have experience in managing their own affairs or having a job and proving themselves in it.
Presidency is a big affair.
It's a big affair.
Right.
But now you have a lot of the young parliamentarians who think that in 5 years they can become president, they're positioned, because they see it as an office to occupy, not a noble cause to serve society, to
they
bring
see it as an office to occupy,
not a noble cause to serve a society and bring about its transformation.
Right.
If you like, ask anybody, a member of parliament, and say, why are you doing what you're doing?
Okay.
What is inspiring you to want to be a member of parliament? What do you want to see of that? What transformation do you want to see of your constituency?
Right.
What is your vision? Tell us the vision of your constituency. How you're going to bring the local economy there.
Right.
Most of them may not have a blueprint of their constituency. But if every constituency has a blueprint of a development agenda, which is all connected, then you are seeing the bigger picture of the country developing. That's not what we are seeing. So I think it is extremely important that we focus on the person. I mean, that's what Diomaye and Sonko had proved, at least, that the person that is saying, vote for me, is a person you can trust. That's very, very key.
That's very, very key. Right. Dr. Aishi, let's go for a break. We'll be back shortly. I know you're enjoying the conversation, but don't worry. You're still watching This Week Africa. Let's go for a quick break. We're back shortly with more to say.